and number 2 moved. There's not a lot of floorboards out there if something goes wrong or you're trying to build a car. So there at some point, IMCA is going to have to allow aftermarket or, fabricated firewalls and floorboards at some point.
Well, most of the cars, Camaros, Malibus, all that, they have reproduction floor pans and firewalls for.
Right, but we're starting to see some of these cars already.
Yeah.
With fabricated.
Right, flat though, or bead rolled. But
right.
What I'm saying is you can actually get OEM style.
Here's why I'm for that rule. Here's why I'm for that rule. Number 1, they're safer. Mm-hmm. You can build a safer floorboard. You can build a safer
around
firewall.
The cage. Correct.
Right. Now, people are going to argue weight. Mm-hmm. Fabricated firewalls, floorboards are about 5 pounds, 6 pounds. I mean, there's not a lot of difference.
It's not.
You're not saving so much weight. You're getting a competitive advantage. I mean, you're not. So with this change coming about, and I think it's, again, I don't know. I've been trying to talk with Jerry. Jerry's not in the state to talk right now after a major surgery. Not going to bother him. I'll respect that healing time that's going to take. This just happened at a bad time. I want people that are in these cars hitting us up on the Swears Trucking chat line. I want them to call in. I want James Whitehouse to call in. I know he knows the number. It's 503-862-3478. I want to pick his mind on what he's learned in I don't want to call them negotiations, but conversations with Jerry on what's going on with these classes of cars here, because they're at a real weird time for both those classes here in the Pacific Northwest. We've been saying it for a year. It's happened. The IMCA stock cars are here. Now you've got to build the class. How do you do that?
You got to get them on the track.
Right, but you also have to build it without hurting your other 2 divisions on either side.
Yep.
Okay? That's the trick. Not losing your street stocks and not taking drivers away from your next division up. You still want the car count. James, that number is 503-862-3478. That's 503-862-DIRT. Easy to remember. I want you to call us. I want to hear what you have to say and what you've learned, what you've talked about with Jerry. And here we go. The phones are going nuts.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wow.
What you got on the phone?
Tom Langen. Tom Langen's just rubbing salt in the wound. He knows how much I can't stand headlights on race cars. Great guy. And he's like, hey, check out these headlights. And how about that lower grill? He's got a sticker of a lower grill on their 74.
I just bought headlight stickers for my Neon.
Here's a picture of their...
He doesn't like headlights or green. He says both are just absolutely...
We've got a picture of Langen. Langen sent in a picture of their firewall. Maybe we can get that permission to post that up on Moxie there. Tom, what do you say?
Well, sounds as though we have a phone call.
I'm hoping that's James Whitehouse calling in here on Northwest Dirt News. James, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
James, talk to me.
Can you... Hello?
Oh, no.
Hello?
We don't have one of those things that we're...
I don't know what's going on. We can't get James.
Good job.
Can you hear us?
Good job.
It wasn't... we didn't have our... aren't you supposed to have that broadcast alert?
Yeah.
We haven't done that in a while.
A what? Broadcast alert?
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Dom and I are doing the comedian filler-in part that you hired us for.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this again.
Well, if you could make it work, it'd be great.
James, are you there? Why do we not have him coming in?
I do not know.
Clint, I'm hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Everything is good. All the connections are right. It's got to be something on his phone.
It's got to be something on your computer.
James, what I want you to do, I want you to call my personal phone. I know you have the number. We'll talk in just a minute, okay? I don't know what happened.
His personal number is 541-867-5309.
So,
I don't know. I try not to memorize anything Corey.
James can hear us, but we can't. They could hear James out there, but we couldn't hear him in our earphones.
Well, that won't work, though.
No.
We don't know what he's saying.
Only if we broadcast the show.
Okay, James, we've got you live on Northwest Dirt News. Thanks for your patience. I don't know what happened to that line. Thanks for calling in, bud.
No problem.
So,
We could hear me through Spreaker, but you guys couldn't hear me.
yeah, that was really strange. Really strange. So let's talk. Let's talk about the state of these two classes right now.
Well, as pretty much everybody knows, the introduction of the IMCA cars was pretty late to the game. We had already put together our rule package, and basically we based it off of 15 years of Willamette Speedway, Banks, Cottage Grove, trying to make sure that it was open enough to allow any street stocks from Coos Bay, St. Helens, Alma, Madras, any of the cars that qualified from Madras, but also the cars that come from Hermiston, Tenino, any of the other tracks around that want to race with us, as long as they meet those basic rules. But we wanted to make sure that we kept it a stock class, which is when Bill was developing the Classic Sportsman, one of the things he took from Portland Speedway was their rule for stock firewall and floorboard, in an effort to keep the cars from being fabricated cars. You know, it's hard to, once you start allowing cockpits, it's real easy to start allowing aluminum sides and flat side bodies, and that's kind of what happened to the J class of Willamette, and he didn't want that to happen again. So I've always kind of believed that was the way it should be. Now, I understand why IMCA has the rules that they have. I don't know if I buy the whole it's safer thing. I think that's just an argument made by people that want to have them. But the fact is, in the Midwest, when you buy a Monte Carlo or a Cutlass to build one, it's rusted out, and the floorboards are rusted out, and they have to replace it with sheet metal anyway. There's no replacements, and yeah, you can buy the aftermarket replacements, but it gets really expensive, and IMCA's, in an attempt to keep the cost down, doing that. But here it's a little bit different. Most of the cars that we're building or have our firewalls and floorboards are in decent shape. So we've always kept that rule. That being said, there was no talk about the IMCA stock cars with Jerry before we released our rules. He said he was talking about them, actually. I'll take that back. But he said in a year or two. So I just copied his rules, made sure that we checked everything, that everything was good for all of the other the other tracks, and we presented them. And then about a month after that, the IMCA stock cars came out. Well, the problem is, in that month's time, various people bought cars, and they asked me, can we run the fabricated floorboards and firewalls? Well, no, that's been a rule for 20 years for street stocks in the Northwest, so I said no. So those people took their stuff out. They cut them out, and they put in factory floorboards and firewalls. That's the Langans. Sean Gentry did one. There's other people, too, that have built cars. So about a month after the IMCA cars were introduced, the rules were changed for the street stock class for the three tracks in the valley: Cottage Grove, Willamette, and Banks. When that happened, he allowed the fabricated firewalls and floorboards. However, we had released our rules back in December, and people had made a significant sacrifice to meet our rules. So I don't think it's fair at this point to just allow it this late in the game. Had it happened in September or October or maybe even November, I'd have been all on board for it, because I don't think it provides that much of an advantage. In fact, I don't think it provides any. I don't really care one way or the other, as long as they keep a stock appearing body on the outside. I want them to look like race cars, not, flat sides. I want them to look like a Camaro or Monte Carlo or a Cutlass or whatever they are. But that being said, it's not fair to the guys who went through all the trouble and expense of putting in the factory floorboards and firewalls to allow it. So we had to make a decision. They are allowed to run as a street stock at Willamette, Banks, and Cottage Grove, and that includes in our races. But the cars with the fabricated firewalls and floorboards are not eligible for points and can't run at the other races for the Iron Giant this year. Now, next winter, we'll review the rule. If there's enough of them out there and there's enough of an interest, we'll definitely change the rule. But right now, we're only talking about maybe 2 or 3 cars in the Northwest.
So, based upon what has happened with that, and I know it's not a popular decision on both sides. There's people that agree on it in one way, people that disagree with it on the other. Do you think that this could be a good thing for the IMCA stock cars to get on the track and race with these street stocks to build the class and show the difference? I think the biggest thing with these 2 cars is the weight rule.
Well, there's actually several different changes. The motor rules, the carburetor rules.
Carburetor rule is another
the
one.
weight
Yes.
rules. And other than that, there's a lot of similarities. I think it's going to cause more confusion than anything. Although I don't have any problem running with it. I've run in 2-barrel classes myself. I've run against 2 barrels with a 4-barrel and got my butt kicked back when Elma required 2-barrel motors, and they were technically supposed to be flat top. They weren't even allowed roller rockers, I believe, and they just dusted me. I don't see any problem with the cars running with us. In fact, as long as there's a lot of the IMCA cars that are already running with us that have changed over to a stock firewall and floorboard, there's no problem with that. That's the biggest difference. They have to add the weight because in order to meet our rules, you have to weigh 3,300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's like our big controlling factor. That's the thing that makes everybody equal. You can't get around that weight. You have to weigh, unless you run a crate motor.
So 3,300 pounds
crate motor rules.
with the crate motor, the weight rule is what?
I have to look it up. It's whatever.
3,100 pounds
for the crate motor.
3,100. Yeah. So what about the guys that have crate motors that aren't legal now because of the rule change?
What do you mean?
Well, there's guys that have, so we've got 602 crate engines, right, that can't be used on one side or the other. What do they do?
Oh no, they can still, if it's a crate motor, they can run with us at the 3,100 pound weight rule. As long as they've got a stock firewall and floorboard, and they meet our rules, they can run with us at all of the races. We welcome them to come. I wish this had happened earlier. I wish we could, because if I hadn't have already told everybody, no, we're not allowing fabricated floorboards and firewalls back in, October, November, and December, when several people were building their cars, then I could feel confident about making a change if I had known there were going to be that many. But at the time, we're talking 3 or 4 people. Well, when you got 70 cars out there that have all met this rule for years, I'm not just going to arbitrarily change that rule for 3 or 4 cars.
And that's understandable.
What's that?
That's understandable. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. I mean, that's kind of what you have to do, given the whole situation. We do know the IMCA stock cars are here. That's a given. They're on the card. What do you foresee happening with that division of cars?
I think it'll grow. It's new. It's the flavor of the month. We'll see. I've been doing some research on the IMCA stock cars and the IMCA pure stocks and the other rules. It's kind of a mixed bag. Some places they're really popular. Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, they have great turnouts.
The
They have
Dakotas.
lots of cars. You go to California, they're canceling the classes in some places because they can't get enough cars to show up. So I think it's a mixed bag. I don't know. I really don't. The whole goal with the series was to grow street stock racing and racing in general, because you don't have modified drivers and late model drivers if you don't have people with some place to start. And the idea of a traveling series gets people thinking, God, that sounds like fun. I'd like to do that. I'd love to be out there with those guys. Well, even if it's at your home track, you get to be a part of that series, even if it's only for one race.